So, hi everyone.
Hello.
Thanks to coming back again to see us in live for the follow steps of the clinical examination. Like we did 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, the first webinar for the press cam. And then we did 2 webinars already about the clinical examination. We decided to separate clinical examination in 3 parts. So we did the first, we did analysis and then clinical examination on the table. And then we did last week clinical examination in a static position and on a dynamic position.
Yes.
So now the last part will be the control on the press cam with Alex, our patient, and we will try.
Still here.
Yeah, still here every week. So we try, as usual, to be as precise as possible, and depending on Alex, but also depending on few other examples that you can have in your cabinet. So,
Yeah.
as usual, we want you to ask your question during the live, because last week, for example, we had a question, but a bit too late at the end of the show. So it was too late to answer during the live, because don't forget, guys, that we have a small gap between the live and what you see at home. So don't hesitate to ask the question during the live.
Sure, and just to let you know, guys, you can find all the videos now from our Podiatech YouTube channel, and it will be very soon normally on the extranet too. So you have already the press cam recorded and the first part, or the second part and the third part that we are recording now will be very soon on the Podiatech YouTube channel. So do not hesitate to share the content, to watch it again if you want. And if you have any other question, we are here with Laurent actually and I to help you and to give you the full support.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And last time, like Alex said, if you have few, because we are not going to explain all the steps of the press cam, because we explained already at the first webinar, like basic stuff we explained already, like create a new patient, create a new exam, the basic knowledge to check on the analyze. So we are going to check more precisely the situation of Alex. So if you have some doubt or some question about the few basic knowledge or the press cam, do not hesitate to check the first movie. So just to remind what we did at the beginning with Alex, we saw during the analysis that he's doing running actually, and he have pain on the left knee because of he had also an injury, past injury about 10 years ago. He broke his leg on the left, and he have today pain on the left knee and lombalgia, so low back pain also. So depending on this anamnesis, we decided to check some precise element on the table, clinic examination on the table. We saw like some pain on the tibia. We precised the pain on the tendon on the left leg. We didn't saw difference between legs or something like this, but we controlled. And on the static position last week, as you remember if you was connected, or we saw a bit of overpronation. So overpronation a bit more important on the left, and we saw also a link to that, because it's where we saw that it was really important to check also the bit higher, also the knees compared to the ankles, foot and ankles. So a bit overpronation, but with genuine vowel. That means deviation on the lateral about the knees. So we discussed last week that it was must not to put over correction on the feet, because you have opposite knees. So this was in static position, and as you remember also, we checked also the pelvis, of course, because he have a low back pain. So we saw last week that he have a little gyration, so that means a rotation of the pelvis, same side than the clock pelvis deviation. So like this, like the clock, not opposite clock, but clock. it's anti-clocking or clocking deviation. So clocking deviation, like this, from the left to the right. Okay, so he had a small deviation on the pelvis we saw, and in dynamic position, we saw also overpronation, but quite regular, a bit more on the left, but no big deviation we saw on the dynamic. And also in a static active, we remember that we saw also a lack of proprioceptive, so stability, lack of stability on the left because of the trauma, most likely. So depending on everything we saw, now the clinical examination is not done. We have also some element to control with the press cam, the last part of the clinical examination. So what do we have to control? Of course, we have to control in the postural deviation, so postural acquisition. We have to control what about because of the pelvis deviation, it can be some difference between legs, like more pressure on one side or on another side. Or it can be some, let's say, too much deviation, too much movement of the center of pressure. Okay, so we are going to control that. Of course, we are going to control also the pressure point. Is it something equilibrate, or we have difference between left and right, all the stuff like this? Because remember, last time he saw the chiropractor or osteopath was only 2 years ago. So like he's doing running, we can see some difference between pressure point between left and right. So we have to be careful on that point. And of course, control the supposition that we made for the correction. So before to put the correction on your insoles, on your orthotics, you have to control them on the press cam to see how the body is reacting. When I say this, I talk about a bit postural correction. Of course, if you put mechanical correction, like antipronation, supination correction, both sides, you do not have to control on the press cam because you won't see any difference. But when you want to put one correction only in one leg, you have to control on the press cam because you can change a bit the body position. Even if you do not work as we say in France, as a postural person, you know that when you put one correction only in one side, you will change a bit the position of the body. So you want to control if it's going to your side or not. It's logical depending on what you saw before. So it's very important to control that. So this was the postural acquisition, static or postural acquisition, and you compare with the correction. And then, of course, in dynamic, you have to control a few stuff. I will show you a bit of curve, like explain the physiological position of the curve, gait line, and the curve with the forces. Not everything from the press cam, unfortunately, because we need one full day training, but the basic knowledge you have to know about the curves. And in that situation, we want to control if it's overpronation or not, if you have enough propulsion, also because of knee pain during the sports, can be often because of a lack of propulsion. So we have to control if you have enough propulsion during the step. Okay, so this is what we are going to check all together. So the first step, of course, will be to create a new patient. As I said already, we are not going to explain everything. We are going to be fast on that point and be focused on the analyze. Okay. So I already prepared a new patient. And of course, next week we are going to have the last webinar from these few weeks. Maybe it's going to be a few other webinars a bit later, but it will be the last for this period, for this end of the 2020 year. Of course, we are going to go back to the files, which files you can send to the doctors, which documents you can give to the patient, how you can communicate to the patient, and how you will prepare your final insoles. It will be also interesting next week. So that's why, guys, I don't want to explain a lot about all the clinical examination you can change and you can print out today. We are going to do this next week. So today it's focused on analyze. Next week will be focused on the communication. So as you know, we have 4 different options. So for Alex, the one will be the most interesting. will be, of course, the postural acquisition, because we will see a bit more precisely doing like 10 seconds or 15 seconds, depending on what you choose. I advise you to put 10 seconds. I think it's enough. And we will compare with the superposition of different cohesion and see what's going on the body. So you have to click on postural 1. Nothing happened yet, it's normal, because I want to ask our patient to stand on the press cam. Okay, and I will replace a bit the feet directly on the press cam. Okay, you can go up again. So you have to ask the patient to look straight, be, how you can say, natural as possible. Of course, if you have eyeglasses, you have to put the eyeglasses, and no sound around or not talking or like doing the acquisition. So let's say. It's a live, a small live problem, so I just want to switch off and switch on because I have a small problem. So guys, as you know, with informatic equipment, sometimes you have some problem, you just have to switch off, switch on again. It will work this time, I'm sure. So I'll go back to my patient. So we do it again. Okay, as we explained last time, the first thing to do, as we explained last time, is to put back at the center the picture and to move back a bit the white line. The white line will cut, in fact, the feet in two parts, like forefoot, back foot. So the first thing to do is to put at the center the picture. Then we can start to analyze a bit the pressure points. As we can see, we start to check by the pressure point and by the print, the shape of the print, let's say. So what we can say at this point, like don't forget that he didn't see osteopath or chiropractor during the two last years. So we have to control if you have some, let's say, not logical point of pressure. Logically, because we have a small overpronation, you should have pressure under the first metatarsal bones, both sides. It's quite logical, as you have also overpronation a bit more on the left, so you should have pressure on the first metatarsal bones. And if you check the picture here, you have a lack of pressure under the first metatarsal bones here. So maybe it can be a lack of mobility. You know, guys, I know, like in Poland, you work with physio and chiro. I know that in a few different countries you also work with different professions. So you can work, you can be more efficient. You can, when you see some not logical point of pressure like that, to be sure, you send the patient to the chiropractor, and he will check if you have a lack of mobility under this joint or not. So this is the first point to control the pressure point, the shape of the print, let's say. Don't forget that it's not the same than podoscope. It's pressure point. Podoscope is only the contact. Okay, what else we can see on this print? It's normal not to see the toes, of course, because the toes will be in contact to the floor, but not pressure to the floor. Okay, what else? We have also the center of pressure. Here at the center, we can see that it should be normally approximately on the white line. Approximately on the white line, I mean approximately on the styloid bones. So we can see on that acquisition that it's a bit too much at the back. But don't forget, guys, that when you wear shoes, you have a small drop here. So most of the case, it's enough to advise to wear every day in a daily life shoes with a bit of drop, a bit of heels for him, in a way to have the center of the pressure a bit forefoot, like a bit more forefoot. So it should be approximately on the white line. If the patient do not want to change the shoes, and if he wear like shoes with no drop at all, of course you can put a small heel with the insoles. If it's linked to the goal of the patient, because we know that for him it's not really the case because he have pain only on the left and low back pain. I don't think it will be linked to that, but it's important to check it also. What else we can check here? It will be important to check. It's the pressure point, the weight compared to left from the right. That we can see here on the screen that we have more weight on the right than on the left. So we know that we have a low back pain and we have a small deviation on the pelvis. So the goal will be to try a bit of correction. We can put on the pelvis to have a more equilibrate, let's say, between left and right, and compared to that one. Okay, so it will be important. As you advised you already in the past, if you saw me doing trainings, every time you will put one correction only in one side, left or right, doesn't matter, it will push the weight to the opposite side. So if I put one correction on the right, it will push the weight on the left. So in that situation, I have more weight on the right. So I will try one correction on the right and try if it's better or if it's not. Okay, simply. So for this example, we have a little movement on the pelvis, like I said, gyration, rotation, clocking. Okay, so clocking, gyration, you have three kind of correction you can put to solve this problem. Remember, so you have, that means you have the left a bit forward, like this. So the first correction you can put is to put one element under the left forefoot. In that situation, is it a great opportunity? I don't think so. Why? You have more weight on the right. So if you put one element on the left, you will have even more weight on the right. So it's not a good solution for him. Second option, you have 50-50. No, you have more weight on the right, like us. So you can put you can search to put one element on the right to solve the same problem. So we have another correction element we can put on the right. It's one element under the styloid on the right, because when you put one element under the styloid, it will push forward the pelvis on the right. Same if you put higher the left forefoot, or if you put something on the right styloid, it will do the same movement. Okay, so in that situation, we'll try that element. It's just one example. I know that, guys, you use maybe some different correction elements. Not the goal today. No matter which element you use in your cabinet, you have to try it on the platform and see what's going on. Third option, you have 50-50, same deviation, but 50-50 between right and left. But you just put both elements. You put one element on the left forefoot, one element on the styloid on the right. And you should have still 50-50, but you correct the pelvis position. Okay, so what else we can, of course, I advise you to put comments on the acquisition to show to the doctors, to show to the patient what you saw actually on this acquisition. Of course, we are going to talk a bit deeper about this next week, when we are going to talk about communication, but I can show you straight now, because if you do it now, it will be simpler for the next time, because you're, of course, 1 week after, you can forget some elements, so better to put straight the comment on the screen. So you have two possibilities to put the comment. You have the first possibility here in Note. Note, this is also the white square here. You put all the comments on about everything on the screen. So you can put, for example, here you can put overweight on the right foot, or you can put also overweight on both heels. You can put something about all the acquisition. And you have the second option with the small button here. You can add some precise comment about some precise pressure point. So we do both situations here. So on the main note, I will put more weight on the right. So overweight right position. So I just put my text here on the screen, on the white square, and as a precise correction, comments. So as you can see on my screen, I have nice picture at the center. I have comments overweight on the right. So I can add a underline with a curl, just overweight right, underline 52% on the right. It will be easier to check from the doctor and from the patient. And here I also put a precise comment. Here you can see with the arrow here, I put like lack of pressure under the first metatarsal bones. This will be the communication for the chiropractor. Okay, so the next step will be to do the same acquisition with the correction element and to compare both acquisition to see which one is better. So the goal is to understand, you have your correction in mind, you want to understand if it's good for him, yes or not. So sometimes your idea, in fact, doesn't work properly. Okay. So I switch off this one. Of course, I advise you to do all the acquisition following. Like you do the first one, then you do the second one straight with the patient on it. Okay. So because this for the show, we did of course one acquisition, one more acquisition, and we switch off the patient from the platform. But of course, we will ask the patient to stay on the platform. So the process is quite basic. You go back to acquisition and you create a new acquisition. I will ask my patient to go back to the platform. And before, so we have the same black screen. Before to save the acquisition, I will put in the white square here which correction I want to try. So I want to try under theory at the right. So I put the correction on the square so I know what I will compare with. So you can go on it, please. And I will put my small correction element, 2 millimeters with a high show under the right styloid. So same thing, I put my element, ask him to touch the feet with the hands, look straight, be natural as possible, and let's go. Okay, so I have now the second acquisition. Of course, the goal will be to compare both acquisitions side by side. So I will show you how to switch side by side acquisition to compare acquisitions. So I advise you to go back to the first acquisition. So you go back to acquisition, you open the first acquisition, and then you go to compare, and you upload the second acquisition. So you will have at the left the first one, at the right the second one. Because if I compare now, I will have at the left the second one and at the right the first one. So it's less logical. So you go back to the first acquisition and then you will compare with the second one. So I switch to the first acquisition, then I go to compare. And I open the second acquisition. So the first element will compare between the two acquisitions. Of course, as I put a comment on both acquisitions, I know what I compare. I know that at the left, I have overweight at the right on this acquisition. And here I have my small element and the steroid I put on the white, under the white foot. So I know what I compare. So if we check, of course, the goal is not to compare the pressure point anymore, because I put an element under the white feet, so that's why I have overpressure here. So I don't really care about this overpressure under the steroid here, because I know that I put an element. But I want to compare the position of the center of pressure, and also between the pressure point between left and right. So here at the first view, it's not really a big difference between both acquisitions, because at the left, without any correction, I have 52% on the right foot. Here with the correction element, I have 53% on the right foot. So it's, let's say, like not really productive, but I want to control. It's not enough to be sure that I don't want to put the correction, because I also want to control. It's too easy. Let's say it's too easy to just compare a pressure point between left and right. We can go deeper than that. I explain myself. When you are in a static position, you know that your body is moving, like it's moving forward, backward, lateral. So I want to know if I have less movement with the correction element, or if I have more movement with the correction element. So to do that, it's pretty basic, pretty simple. You just have to remember, you have a button here on the screen. In English, I forgot the name, but it's comparative between postural acquisition. You just click on the small button and you will have all the movement of your patient during these 10 seconds. And you will be able to compare if he did more movement or less movement with the correction elements. Less you move, more stable you are. So if he's less moving with the correcting element, it's quite positive. If he's moving a bit more, it's quite negative, let's say. Okay? So we switch the button. And you can see on the screen that these correction elements, it's not 100% sure that I will put on my insoles. Why? Because it's not really positive also. So, like I told you before, last week and at the different webinars, the goal of the press cam is not always to validate your supposition. It's sometimes to say, no, I don't think it's a good solution for him. So you have to listen to the pressure in that case. More likely, if you didn't see any chiropractor or osteopath before, you have to control before with the chiropractor and then control again on the platform and see if you have something different, yes or not. I explain myself. You have the area, that means the place, the square where you move. You have also the length, that means the distance you did with the center of pressure. We can see here on the screen that here moved a bit more a bit more with the correction elements. So I don't think you can see clearly the number on the screen, but you have, he moved a bit more, like instead of 1.6, he moved at 2.6. Instead of 9.4, he moved at 10. So it's not a big difference, but it's not really efficient, let's say. So in my cabinet, I will decide to put only a mechanical correction for him, so a bit more stability on the left than on the right because of the injury and a bit more overpronation on the left. But no postural correction yet. I think it's too early because no really big difference on the screen. So I will wait. I'm going to wait 1 month, send him to the osteopath or chiropractor and check again. So if I have still the same, I can check again. If I have a better result, I put the correction the second time. Every time you have a small doubt, you don't do it straight, you do it the next time. Doesn't mean that you can't make the insoles, but of course you don't put every correction at first. So this was about Compare. We are going to talk next week, guys, about the movie. We can link also to the webcam, but as it's more communicative tools, we are going to talk about this next week when we are going to talk about communication documents you can print out with the press cam. So now we are going to do the dynamic. Okay, so I'll go back to acquisition and new acquisition. Before that, I just want to show you a bit of curves. It's not going to be really complicated, but I just want to show you that the physiological curve for one patient before to see the pathological one. Just a fast explanation. I think you heard about this already at school or doing the different trainings, but we have also one curve really famous in the world of the podology by chiropractor, by surgeon, physio people. A lot of people know these curves, so it's always better if you can know these curves too. Of course, when you walk, this is the line of the forces. So when you walk, the first contact to the floor, you have the forces go up a little bit, then you have a little movement of pronation, as you know. So you have less forces, and then to propulse, you have to use your muscles, like tibial posterior, hallux flexor, and so on. So you have forces going up again. So you have this kind of parabolis, 2 parabolis. So like this is a physiological curve. So we can compare with our patient if you have about the same curve, both feet, or if you doesn't. Okay, so you have to control to know this basic knowledge, let's say. And when you know that, you know some pathological curves about forces one more time. So one example, if you have an overpronation, more likely with the kids. When you have overpronation, usually you have a lack of power at the muscles. So when you go down because of the pronation, it will be harder to go up again because of lack of forces at the muscles. So usually with the overpronation, the second curve parabolis will be way lower than the first one. So it will be longer and lower, okay, with an overpronation step. Opposite situation when you have a big high arch, a big broke arch. Usually you do not have any pronation, so you do not have a curve going down anymore. So you have only one parabolis, and it's shorter. So you have a lack of mobility. So if you have one parabolis shorter, and it's a sign of instability, more likely. So I wanted just to know it's basic knowledge about this curve, and also we will explain together the basic knowledge about the gait line, famous gait line. You have basically only 2 curves to know, this curve and the gait line. If you know these 2 curves, it's largely enough, I guess. So we go back to the press cam. Like I said, new acquisition. Of course, like I said in the first webinar, we prefer to use multiple dynamic. Why? Because it's more, it's easier to have a natural step. You know already the process I explained in the last webinar, so we are going to be faster here. And then we are going to check for Alex. Is it overpronation step? Is he enough propulsion? Because we know that it's a direct link between propulsion and the knee. So if you have a lack of propulsion, you can have pain at the knee, actually. So we will control pronation, control propulsion, and control the curve, because we know that we have a lack of stability on the left. So we have three things to control on the dynamic position. So let's go. I will just move a bit the webcam just to be able to work on the press cam. And we are going to be quite fast about the acquisition that way. Let's go. And I will, like I explained you before, I will switch right if it's not a good position. Thank you. Enough. Okay, I already explained the protocol of the acquisition before, so I do not want to spend a lot of time on it. But here, what will be the point we have to control? It will be interesting because we saw at the left foot in a static position a bit of let's say not logical. I will just move forward a bit the webcam for you to be. It will be a bit more clear. So as we said, in a static position, we had some not really logical pressure point under the first metatarsal bones. So I want to see in dynamic if it's still the same or not. About the first metatarsal bones, he's working in a proper way, let's say, but I have a lack of pressure at the cuboid bones on the left. So first thing, as in static, we have to control the pressure point first. So for the pressure point, of course, I have overpressure at the second metatarsal bones, both sides. So we have basically three possibilities because of that. First possibility, we have a lack of propulsion under the first metatarsal bones, but it's not the case. As we can see, the gate line, the white line, it's quite physiological. I'll explain myself. You have to start on the lateral, go a bit on the medial, go back to lateral, and focus with the first metatarsal bones. So it's actually the case. So you have a nice propulsion with the first metatarsal bones. So it's not because of that you have overpressure on the second metatarsal bones. The second possibility is a bit the lack of, let's say, mobility on the midfoot. I think a bit more about this because we have not really logical pressure point on the static position. So I want to control the mobility and the midfoot with an osteopath because sometimes can be because of this. And the first option, third possibility you have to control in table clinical examination. Sometimes you have a bit of inflammation, let's say, on the sesamoid, the two small bones under the first metatarsal bones. So you have basically to do a flexion, push under the sesamoid. If it's painful, sometimes you can have such a situation because you will switch the first to the second one because it's inflammation. So, but it was not the case with Alex. So I think it will be enough to send Alex to see a chiropractor, like we said, and check again one more time afterward if it's still the same. If it's still the same, basically, you just have to play with the materials. So you will put dynamic materials everywhere, apart from the second metatarsal bones, because you have overpressure on the second one, but nice propulsion. So you change the materials under the second metatarsal bones. You put some active cushioning, so cushioning but still active because he's doing sport. And you put dynamic materials under the first, the fourth, and the fifth metatarsal bones. So it will be personalization with the technical materials. It will be enough for him. What else? We wanted to check also if you have overpronation more on the left than on the right. And it's not really the case, because if you check the gait line, when you have overpronated step, you have the gait line more in the medial part. It's not really the case. So you have a bit of pronation, but both sides. So not really bigger on the left. Okay, so to sum up, just we saw the overpressure under the second metatarsal bones. Of course, you can put the comment here about general comments. So that means both sides. As you can see, to put the precise comment, it's not available. Of course, because you have two, in fact, acquisition at the screen. You have the left and the right. If you switch only to the left or only to the right, you will have all the option for the comment. Of course, you can also use this button to make the step alive. Let's say, I will show you. You can click on play, and you can see the steps. Of course, you can do point by point, like this. And you can switch only to the left, for example. And you can stop at this step. As you can see, it will be the last step of the propulsion. So DGT1, the name is. So the last step of the step will be overpressure under the second metatarsal bone. So you can print at this step to be more clear for the doctors. And you can put also, of course, some comments. So general comments, so overpronation step, and you can put a precise comment, overpressure under the second metatarsal bone. So I will do that for you. General comment, overpronated. Overpressure. Okay, so you can personalize and show to the doctors that you have an equipment, but you know how to use the equipment. So you know how to put a command. So general command, precise command, and when you print out the file, of course, you will have the precise command and the general command. So it will be easier to understand everything from the doctor and from the patient too. And to finish that, I go back to both feet. And you have this curve we just explained together, the curve with the forces. We can see that at the right, it's quite physiological. Remember the two paraboles? So the first parabolis, and then you switch to the second one. As we can see at the left foot, where we're supposed to have a lack of stability at the left, we can control that with the curve. So we have switch back, go up again. So it's less stable, let's say, on the left curve. So the first supposition was nice. So we're supposed to have a lack of stability at the left, and we see with the curve that we have a lack of stability on the left. So the first supposition was great. Of course, you can play a bit with the tools. You can, if you want, like we did in a postural acquisition, you can do another acquisition, for example, with the shoes with the insoles, with different shoes. So one shoes with a heel, one shoes without heel. And then if you go to compare, you will be able to compare multiple acquisition and to compare also the curve. I can show you just how it works. Not necessarily with our patient because we have nothing to compare with, just to show you how you can do in your cabinet. So you just go to compare, you search, and you put back, you put another acquisition. You put another acquisition and you can compare two different curves at the screen. So this will be nice, for example, for you physio in Poland, for example, you can compare before trainings and after trainings, after physio, before physio, after physio, with shoes, without shoes. And you can compare the curves and see which one is the most stable, let's say. So if I sum up everything, we validate few stuffs, but we invalidate few other stuffs. What does that mean? We suppose that you have with the lack of stability on the left, it was well supposed because we saw that the curve was less stable at the left. So the goal with the insoles will be to be a bit more stable on the left, but be careful because you have overpronation but genu variant. So it will be neutral stabilization, a bit more important at the left. But we saw also that it would be nice to go to the physio. And our first supposition with the pelvis correction, we controlled, it was not 100% satisfying. So I prefer to wait the chiropractor, control again and put the correction a bit later. I think it's too soon to do it. In dynamic, we saw, like I just told you, a bit lack of stability on the left and also overpressure under the circummetatarsal bones. So we will play with the technical materials at the forefoot. And that's all. I think it's quite easy patient at the end. And I think it will be really efficient in source for him. And as you know, guys, it's really important to work with multiple professions. So not only podiatry, also physio, also chiropractor, because it will be more complete for the patient. So, and advice for the patient will be key in such a situation. So, Alex, maybe you can control if you have some question in the live.
Actually, no.
Actually,
looks pretty clear, Thomas.
Looks pretty clear. So I'm happy about this. But of course, if you have few questions later, you can send. Do not hesitate to send a mail. Maybe to Alex or to Laurent.
Yeah, you do have our contact. So
yeah, you have a contact, and
feel free.
It will be a pleasure for me to answer. See you next week for the next week.
The last
webinar
for 2020.
Yeah. For 2020, we will
Such
finish
a year.
such a year. Yeah, perfect year. And so it will be also interesting because we will sum up everything from the beginning and sum up which insoles we are going to make for Alex. Which correction element we will finally put and how to put them, and also how to have one complete file documents with pictures and so on, and everything will be more clear.
Definitely. So finally, with the 3 clinical examination that we have just made and the last one, you will have a complete, I'd say, a complete look and overview of the real clinical examination. That is actually really valuable for you guys and share to the people, for the health professional and so on. So do not hesitate to have a look on it on YouTube channel, and feel free to contact us. It will be a pleasure to help you. And if you have also some other ideas about contents and webinar that you want to go further with, actually just come back to us and we'll try to globalize your demand and request, and it will be a nice start for 2021 to launch some other webinars. So
yeah, I agree with that. Let's start to 2021. Will be better than this year.
Yeah, definitely. And see you guys face to face will be a pleasure.
Yeah, sure. So see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.